Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome, I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today was born into a family of natural storytellers. Her family moved from Washington, D.C. to a small town in Illinois, and she graduated from Northern Illinois University and landed a special education teaching job. She retired at age 50 and began looking for her next passion. She joined a local writers group and began jotting down stories from her childhood. Encouraged by supportive and accomplished writers, she decided to put her stories into a book. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Kathy Gereau.
It's wonderful to be here.
Kathy, our opening question on Authors Over 50 is always, so what took you so long to write a book?
Actually, it took me till I was probably 65 to write a book. And a lot of it was just I needed to learn how to write. I wasn't a very good writer, and I was a teacher, so I was used to writing incident reports and IEPs and all kinds of stuff like that. But I needed to learn how to write for just pleasurable reading. So that's kind of why I waited so long.
Well, once you wrote the book, how did you proceed? Did you search for an agent, decide to use a hybrid, small press, or did you self-publish?
I used a hybrid. She writes. That seems to be a real popular one. So I sat down one day and, put in an application. I also put an application for a bunch of my short stories, and the book was the one that got picked up. So I started working in artist on that then.
Well, She Writes is very well respected in the industry, and they certainly love memoirs. So that was right down your alley.
Exactly.
What was your inspiration for this book?
Whenever we would get together, my big family, there's 7 of us that are all mentioned in this book. Whenever we would get together, we'd talk about all these stories about these funny things that happened because we're kind of a funny family. And I thought, I should write these down, for the kids, for the grandkids, just to jog the memory of my siblings too. So that's what made me write it.
Well, the title is very intriguing, Serious Little Catholics, and it chronicles the life of a girl growing up and navigating a Catholic school education. Tell us more about that.
Well, I actually didn't go to Catholic school till I was in 2nd grade, but I had to go to catechism class. So the first couple of chapters are about that. But yeah, we were all, trounced down to St. Catherine's in a town that was just kind of the next town over from where I lived. And, we survived it. It was kind of funny. People tell stories about horrible nuns. I had some really nice teachers and some that weren't so nice. But for the most part, I think I got a pretty good education. I always tell everybody I learned my spelling and punctuation from the nuns, so don't expect it to be very good. I still have to use spell check a lot.
Well, I didn't learn from spelling from phonics. They didn't teach phonics when I was growing up. They taught us to read sight words. So I can't understand, how to spell a word because I didn't learn to sound it out.
I didn't learn how to use phonics until I was in teachers college.
Mm.
That's when I went, oh, okay, I get it now.
What is your writing routine? Are you a morning person or a night person?
I'm a night person. I like it when it's quiet, when everybody's gone to bed, including my husband. I'll stay up and write. So.
Well, that's unusual. Most of the writers I've interviewed have been morning people, so I'm so happy to find a kindred spirit, a night person.
Yeah.
So I guess real people did inspire your characters in this book.
They did. I had to change a lot of names.
To protect the innocent or the guilty.
Yeah, all of the above. There aren't terrible, we had there's so many characters. I didn't change the names of my siblings. They're my parents. So.
Well, tell us more about your publishing journey. Were there challenges along the way? Did you find anything that worked or didn't work?
First of all, I hired a publicist because I know nothing about how to do that. And that was very helpful. It was during COVID, the first year of COVID, and I'd already been doing some preliminary things, but there was kind of a question on whether they were even going to be able to, She Writes was even going to exist, and so it was kind of okay, I'm doing all of this. I hope I actually get to make it work. So there was that. I managed to find a sweet spot when a whole lot of people got both of their vaccines, and we could have a big book launch in the town that I live. So that worked out, but it wasn't, a few weeks later, it was back to, maybe not, maybe this isn't going to work, So I wasn't able to do any other, book signings or anything like that.
So many of us got caught in that COVID outbreak with our first novels coming out, first books being published. So that was a difficult time.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Have you found any publicity that did work for the book? Anything that you really felt that worked, or maybe that didn't work?
I did a lot of podcasts. That's what my publicist, she asked me about it, and I said, yeah, podcasts. I listened to a lot of them, and I think that worked because I had feedback from people that I didn't know that said, I heard this on this podcast. Some of them times they were friends and friends. So I do think that really helped. But, other than that, just word of mouth around town. I live in this tourist town in Illinois that I know everybody in town practically. And, so I was kind of a celebrity when they found out I'd written a book. Also, because it's a tourist town, I was able to put it in a lot of the stores that are in this place. And so I sold quite a few out of my house, basically. So that worked well.
Can you describe the editing process that you chose?
Well, She Writes does the editing. Now I had it edited professionally. And so that gave me kind of a break on what they charge, because they said, this is really good shape. Basically, we're checking spelling and punctuation and, formatting it and so on. So, so that seemed to work just fine for me. But, it was, all right, now you're going to read the whole thing. Now you're going to read the whole thing with all of the little things that we changed. Now, I must have I was so sick of reading that book by the time I was done. I could almost recite it in my sleep before that, because I read it so many times. But so it was very, and I haven't had anybody find a typo in it. I'm sure there is something, you're going to miss something, but yeah, it was very thorough, which I was really happy with.
Well, that's so great. Every time I thought I had a clean manuscript, then somebody would find something else. And I think I went through about 5 editors, and I printed my advanced reader copies. And on the second paragraph, there was a typo that everybody had missed.
Yeah. We tend to read what we think it should say. Yeah.
That's why I think it's good to read out loud.
Absolutely.
One of the ways I have found some of those typos is to listen to the audio version and to read out loud myself. And I think that really helps us to see where we stumble over the words, or, when something doesn't make sense, that really helps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It does, yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your book and then read for us so that we can hear your tone and voice in the book?
Okay, so this kind of started out as little standalone stories. There's quite a few of them that are standalone, um, because I didn't know that I had enough to make a whole book, and before I knew it, I had plenty. So it's organized by year and grade in school, so that everybody can see me growing up, I guess. And I was really careful to try and keep a child's voice. So one of the editors my original editor suggested that some things were just kind of too, kindergartner wouldn't say that. So there was, I tried to make it like that, although we were a pretty literate family. So, so some of the expressions, as I got into 8th grade, I probably would have talked the same way I'm talking now. So, all right. So this is the first story, and I'm going to read the whole story because it's short. It's just three pages long, and it's called The Devil in the Rhubarb, and it's kindergarten, 1956. Sister Felicia, my first catechism teacher, was so serious. Then a great big snake slithered down the trunk of the tree of knowledge and spoke to Eve. Take a bite of my nice, juicy red apple, he tempted her. Sister stopped to make sure we were listening. Now, Eve knew that God told Adam that they could eat anything in the garden they wanted except the apples from his special tree. But the snake was so charming and told such clever lies that she took a bite anyway. You see, that snake was really the devil. I was already in kindergarten, and along with learning to write my name, count to 100, and color inside the lines, I was learning to be a Catholic. It was a complicated process with prayers to memorize, rules to follow, and now this, the devil. My kindergarten was in a public school, which I found out later was an inferior kind of education from a Catholic point of view. So I was getting my catechism from Sister Felicia, a scrawny old nun at St. Mary's. I'd been going to class an hour before Mass every Sunday for almost 2 years now. Finally, we were getting to the seriously scary stuff. The devil lives down in hell, Sister said, pointing to the floor, underground in the fiery center of the earth. But he comes out of that dark place sometimes to tempt us, just like he did to Eve. You must be very watchful and think about what you are doing. Always ask yourself, is this something that God would do? If God said, would God like it if I did that? The answer is no. That idea is coming from the devil. And I had a lot to think about as I sat through Mass that Sunday. And for once, the boring Latin drowning didn't make it hard to keep my eyes open. The devil was apt to be around every corner in disguise, trying to get me to do naughty things. And because I was a girl, I was especially in danger. After all, if Eve, a grown-up woman, had been fooled, I must be very careful. Monday afternoon, I was walking home from school with my best friend, Dana, when I noticed trouble at the corner. A large hole surrounded by sawhorses opened up where the sewer drain had been the day before. We tiptoed up to the gaping edge. It was deep and dark and impossible to see the bottom, but a rusty metal ladder with rounded rungs and splatters of orange paint leaned up against the side of the cracked concrete. Get back, I screamed at Dana, grabbing the sleeve of her sweater and pulling her safely behind her. I think it goes all the way down to hell. The devil might be trying to climb out and tempt us. What are you talking about? Dana did not go to Sunday school at St. Mary's. Good thing I was there to save her. Sister Felicia told us all about Adam and Eve and the snake devil and how hell is in the center of the earth and how we have to be careful because the devil will come and make us do bad things so that he can take us down to hell to live with him after we die. Really? Dana peered around me towards the mouth of hell. She just couldn't help herself, not being a Catholic and all. Yeah, really, I said. Just then we heard clanging and banging coming from the depths of the pit. There was definitely something in there and it was trying to get out. I told you so. We ran the last few blocks back to our own neighborhood. Safe at home, I hurried to change out of my school clothes and ran over to Dana's across the street to play. She had a really nice house with a gigantic backyard, a tire swing, and a huge garden with things starting to poke out of the ground in neat straight rows. Want some rhubarb? It's big enough to eat now, Dana offered. We can pick it, then we can go inside and get a bowl of sugar for mom to dip it in. I almost tasted it already as we ran for the patch of big ruffly leaves, their red-green stems waiting belief. Focused on choosing the perfect stalk, small enough to fit in my mouth, but big enough to load up with sugar, I didn't notice what slithered toward me until it was too late. The snake slid across the white toe of my saddle shoes. I froze in terror, waiting for him to get off, then ran screaming from the yard, across the street, and through our screen door, letting it bang shut behind me. But I did not stop there. I ran all the way up to my parents' bedroom, flung open the rarely used attic door, and ran up the rickety steps to hole up behind boxes full of old stuff. That's where my mother found me, what seemed like hours later, still petrified. What on earth happened to you? She said, holding me close to calm me down. The devil. He climbed out of hell and followed me home, and me and Dana home from school. He was hiding in the rhubarb.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm still scared of snakes.
Well, you don't want to live in Texas because we've got some big ones.
I know. We got some here too.
And my husband loves rhubarb. He's from Illinois, and we
Mhm.
didn't have rhubarb in the South, but he loves a good rhubarb pie.
Oh, yeah, I do too. But yeah,
How long did it take you to write the book?
it took me, I'd say 5 or 6 years maybe to write it.
Well, that's not unusual. I've heard people say 7 or 8 years. So
Mhm,
it takes us all different times.
mhm.
Do you ever Google yourself or read reviews? And how do you deal with the bad ones or the good ones?
Okay, so when the book first came out, I read some Amazon reviews, and there was a couple that made me chuckle. One of them, this lady only gave me 2 stars because I stopped at 8th grade and I didn't go any farther. So it's like she stopped. I was mad at her for that. So that was kind of funny. And then I had one where the book fell apart. So she gave me bad reviews because the book fell apart, which of course I have no control over that. But most of them were pretty good. They were good. You know, there were a lot of 4 and 5 stars. I've kind of stopped reading them now. I don't. It's kind of that's, it's nice when they're good, but I sure don't, that one bad one will make you go, oh, so I don't do it anymore.
Isn't it strange that we can ignore 100 good ones and dwell on the one bad one?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Was there anything that you edited out of your book that you decided would not make the cut?
I did. There was one story that I wrote, and it was a really funny one too, but it was based on a lesson that we had, but I kind of put something in there just because I thought it was funny. I thought, no, I can't do that. So I pulled that out. Yeah, that'll just be a short story probably.
Well, I know this was your life growing up, but did you have to complete any research? Did you have to look back at those years and figure out what was actually happening then?
Because we would tell these stories whenever we got together, there were quite a few of them that, we all remembered collectively. And when we got together, we just tell these stories. Remember when this happened? Remember? So, there's a lot of them burned into my brain. Now, there were some that were just my experience and not shared by my siblings, so they wouldn't remember it. But yeah, I didn't, it seemed to come to me pretty easily. I seem to be able to go back and be that kid in second grade and remember what happened. So,
well, your memory is better than mine, I would think. What year was that? And did we have, Coca-Cola back then? I would have to really look back and see when things actually began.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can remember a lot of things that happened a long time ago. It's what happened yesterday that I'm having a problem with.
Very true. Do you have any other books in you?
I am actually writing one now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. It's almost finished. It is a paranormal romance. It's a novel. And again, it's based on one experience that I had when I was kind of dabbling in metaphysical things. It's not really based on me, but the first few experiences that I have were in that book.
Nice.
So, yeah.
What do you think was the best money you've ever spent as a writer?
I think I have two things that I will say are the best. One of them was going to writing workshops. And there's one that's very close here that I've gone to 9 years in a row now. And the lady who organizes the workshop is actually the one that told me to use She Writes. So there's that. And she was extremely supportive. So that was worth the money. The other one I think is probably hiring the publicist, because again, I don't know how to do that kind of thing. And I also hired somebody to do my website, because again, I could probably figure it out, but it would take me weeks, to do that. So I think those were the two things that actually helped.
Does your family support your career as a writer? I know sometimes writing memoir can touch on touchy subjects.
Yeah, no, they're very supportive. I think they've all read it. I'm not sure about a couple of them. Yeah, an interesting thing. My brother, it would be the third kid down, and he was kind of a little stinker when he was in school. There's chapters about me having to go get his homework because we couldn't trust him and stuff like that, all kinds of things in there. And a friend has read the book and wanted to know if he was still talking to me. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I really did that stuff. That really did happen." So,
well, that's true. I've heard a lot of memoir writers say that their family didn't want everything in the book, so they had to tiptoe around some things.
Yeah, my mother would not have wanted to. She passed away, I think right after it got published. She passed away. And actually, I was a little nervous about her reading it, but her vision was so bad, I'm not sure that she could be able to do that anyway. But no, it's fine.
Do you believe in writer's block? And if so, if you've ever had it, how do you get rid of it?
I do. I've never suffered from that. I just, if I'm writing something and I get a little stuck, I just write something different. I got lists of things I can write about, short stories, whatever. Also, my writers groups, and I have two of them now, we do every other week we do a prompt, and everybody writes the prompt, and that's been really helpful because they're all different. They're taking turns giving them to us, and so I think that's something that is really helpful, to just break away from it and write something completely different until you can go back, until you feel like you're ready to go back to the thing that you really were concentrating on.
That's a good method. I go and exercise and ride my bike and listen to audio books, and sometimes that helps to trigger a childhood memory or something that I want to get on paper.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, Kathy, our last interview question is always, our writers over 50 are a unique set. Do you have advice for writers 50 and above?
Yeah, just do it. Just do it. There are people that are still writing, like you mentioned, they're writing when they're, in their 80s, in their 90s, some of them. Just sit down and do it. You don't want to have any regrets when you're on your deathbed. And if you like writing, if you're a writer and you don't do something, that's going to be one of your regrets.
I agree. And I don't think we want to go to our deathbed with any regrets. So I think writing in life's sweetest third is really important for a lot of us to leave a legacy for those who come behind us. So we just appreciate your being with us today and your expertise and getting this memoir out into the world. And we're happy to say that you're now one of our authors over 50.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this and for being one of your authors, because they're a real talented bunch from what I've seen.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend. And check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's DAILY, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing. And remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.